Doing lots of calisthenics doesn't grant immunity against injuries. You must still train hard and smart while refraining from ego lifting. And that's why in today's video, I'll be sharing 5 important tips to maximize your longevity in this bodyweight training game. The first thing I'll say is that most of these athletes tend to use high repetitions as a baseline. 4 sets of 25, 3 sets of 33. Basically, it's not your traditional 3 sets of 10 or working out like a bodybuilder. The percentages are much lower and we're really going for that maximum pump in most cases. With that in mind, when your volume is creeping up to the point where you're doing hundreds of reps in a single session, that can absolutely lead to form breakdown due to one simple reason. High reps cause fatigue, which tends to compromise technique. That's why I'd argue doing reps of 15 on a conventional deadlift is more dangerous than capping at 8 or 10. This extends to calisthenics workouts as well. When doing push-ups, you might start shifting side to side. Your scapular movement may not be the same. You may start to internally rotate your shoulders a little bit. For dips, you might start leaning all the way forward in an aggressive way, tipping that shoulder. Pull-ups can include kipping or not maintaining maximum tightness. All these issues are more likely to occur when you're pumping it out to the max, which is why I might recommend you lower the reps a little bit, as in doing weighted calisthenics. Even though you can make the argument it's more stressful on the joints, the fact that we're dealing with a higher percentage tends to auto-regulate the form itself. That's one method. But a more practical recommendation is to simply be aware that you're probably not going to reproduce the exact same form as you get closer to failure. So in this way, what do we know about general hypertrophy training? What does the science tell us? You don't have to go to 100% failure every single time. This applies to calisthenics. I would personally recommend leaving 1 or 2 reps in reserve when doing your basic exercises. You'll still get insanely jacked and conditioned, but the form should look cleaner. That matters a lot. Lastly, record your sets. Be mindful of what's happening with your body. Don't get sloppy, even though it could be tempting. Worst case, you rest pause it a little bit. Take a deep breath. So when you're doing pull-ups, stay in that hang. Don't just try to immediately go into your next repetition. Push-ups, same thing. Hold at the top. Don't rush sets. Try to keep it as strict as possible, because cheating on a frequent basis further ingrains that movement pattern. And you don't want that to be your baseline strategy for taking those reps close to failure. Now, for my second tip, I would strongly recommend you don't repeat the exact same workout every time. There should be a synergy of lifts and percentages, just like the strength athletes in powerlifting and strongman do. Of course, some bodybuilders do it too. Check out Renaissance periodization. You can have different days that emphasize different movement patterns. One workout being more dip focused, the other push-up focused. Or you can do them both at the same time, but the order is swapped around. As well as having one day where you're doing weighted calisthenics, the other being on the higher rep side. Or they're both weighted, but the percentages are still different. This synergy allows you to train harder for longer periods of time. Less deloads, optimizing your strength, lowering fatigue, while guaranteeing the best workloads. No longer are you winging the situation. Everything has been carefully thought out. So say goodbye to junk volume, as well as reducing the chances of getting overuse injuries. For example, don't just do a 20 down dip workout every 48 hours. Alternate between that and a 30 down push-up workout. That's all you have to do. Rotate the way in which you do the exercise, but also the session itself. Now, since we're on this topic, let's discuss the third tip. Rotating the variations. I know I sound like a broken record in pretty much all my videos, but this is pretty much universal truth. To minimize overuse, you can't be using the same joint angles every single time. Minimalists are figuring this out the hard way, and I want you to prevent this from happening to begin with. Do a slight modification to the lift you're specializing in. On a dip, that could mean adding chains right underneath you, such that the bottom portion, which is when you get most of the stress on the shoulders, is a little bit easier. Don't just do regular push-ups either. Feel free to mix in some deficit stuff as well. This way you're getting more out of less weight, but now we're actually stressing the bottom portion more. And you'll find that when you go back to regular style, they're that much easier. For pull-ups, neutral grip close, wide, chin, semi, using hollow body and the arch back style. Isometrics, pause reps on any press or pull. Mix things up. The same goes for your high rep burpee workouts. Don't just stick to doing 100 one pumps a day. Mix in the 2 pumps, the Navy SEALs, the 8-count bodybuilders. Check out Iron Wolf if you want to see all kinds of variations, even the Pioneer. Everything is basic, nothing is complicated, but these slight alterations make all the difference long term. This is how you can push your limits for years to come. And I'd argue this is even more important with calisthenics because it tends to be so high rep base. So you factor in the possible form breakdown that could occur doing the same repetitive movements for a long period of time. I think it's completely logical to modify your form. So with that in mind, let's talk about the 4th point. Not rushing into advanced workouts right off the bat. We see this issue in novices who do weights and in calisthenics athletes who want to jump 5 progressions in one shot, specifically when doing skill-based workouts. Look, if you're trying to learn a front lever and you're still stuck at doing the tucked negatives, stay on it. I'm sorry. Some things cannot be rushed. Obviously, if you had a base of muscle and strength by doing weighted calisthenics years before, it will be easier to skip through that. But if this is where you currently are at, it's just a matter of time. You have to stay committed and trust the process that has worked for thousands of other people just like you. The worst thing that could happen is you jump into a variation that's too difficult right now. You don't have the tendon strength to pull it off. And the joint angle stress starts to really hurt your recovery. Or you're just feeling beat down for the rest of the session. Check your ego, please. Same goes if you're doing challenge-based workouts. If you can't do my 20 down dip workout, start with 10 down and then work up 1 rep at a time, 11, 12, 13. I know it's cool when you see these really strong guys, but one of the fastest way to get injured is by training like them when you're obviously not experienced enough to do so. There's also maximum recoverable volume to consider here. You don't have that same level of work capacity and fitness that these guys developed over many years. It looks easy to them now, but at one point they were doing half of that volume. And that's pretty much where you're at right now. So if you're doing, say, the Iron Wolf July challenge and you're a beginner, 100 burpees is challenging, do not jump up to the intermediate level. Please, for the love of God, don't do it. You are going to regret it. I know it's mentally stimulating, you feel like a tank, but if you go beyond your current limits, the wear and tear can accumulate very rapidly, or you may just give up completely. So I always recommend starting slow and not worrying about the end result, because most of the issues that we have, whether it's weight training or calisthenics related, are guys rushing into things or wanting the finale at this exact moment. It doesn't work that way. Once you really accept and internalize that, you're no longer going to be stressing about the present moment. So I think what really helps is not comparing yourself to others so much. Be the best version of you. And eventually, you'll be at the top of the mountain. Anyway, those are the major tips. Let's cover the 5th and final one. Not resting or eating correctly, which is all too common in many calisthenics athletes. I believe this has to do with the fact that many stay lean year-round while running high-frequency programs. Therefore, the assumption is, I don't need to be in a calorie surplus. I don't have to eat that much either because I'm recovering just fine, going to the park every 48 hours, it's all good, we're ripped. We don't have to follow the same rules that bodybuilders have to in order to get bigger and stronger. It's a relative strength game, right? I see your logic, but that'll probably lead to a lot of plateaus later down the road. I don't know what your experience level is at, but if you're doing weighted calisthenics and you get to the point where you're doing 4 or 5 plates on the dips and pull-ups above 3 for reps, you will need to eat like a strength athlete, period. And you can't be sleeping 6 hours a night either. The only reason why you might be able to get away with it right now is due to experience level. You're a beginner, early intermediate. And even then, it's not optimal. So why would you shortchange your results like that? If you look at muscle gaining charts and it says you'll gain 5 pounds this year, I can promise you with 100% certainty, you're not getting all of it. Fact, undeniable, it's the truth. So get your shit together. Learn how to cook. Don't look at some of these genetic freaks that you see being interviewed. Yeah, I eat whatever I want. I go to McDonald's every day. I don't track anything. I just freestyle it, work hard. Man, fuck all that. What those people do is irrelevant if we know it's not optimal. Again, if you wouldn't do this as a powerlifter or bodybuilder, why in the world would you ever attempt this as a calisthenics athlete if your goal is to get bigger, stronger, more conditioned? Look, I'm not telling you to get fat. I actually made a video recently talking about bulking and cutting. You can go within a 10-pound window. But if you look at what some of the strongest guys out there are doing, specifically those who compete in street lifting, you'll see they tend to stay 8 to 12% body fat. But it fluctuates a bit. They're not 6 year round. That's very rare to see. I'm telling you, those people are the exception. All right, besides the results, being in a deficit for prolonged periods of time, while not addressing the programming factors that I corrected before, is a recipe for getting hurt. Which is crazy because the solutions are so simple. Literally anyone can follow my advice and not be regretful later down the road. So I really hope you follow it. And if you want more videos like this where I discuss other specific injuries, let me know and I'll do my best to help you out. So keep working hard, train smart, and try not to get snapped up.